This video is going to be about insecurities and social isolation. Now, given the nature to my life, I have been socially secluded for about 2 years. Yeah, I see random friends here and there, but connection to them, not really. Breaking out of my shell was disproving the belief that I would never be social, which happened in 2020. What caused me to reclude like a turtle drawing in its head was being labeled with Asperger's at the age of 5. And the subsequent placement of me in special education from kindergarten to 11th grade. There, damn, I simplified that even more. Problem was, there are more things in life that can influence social reclusion or isolation, kind of pushing certain people based upon their environment to retreat into themselves. Their mind is way too involved in themselves. They don't have any sense of connection to anybody else. Nothing. Learning what I have, yeah, there is a blessing in disguise with it, provided it's learned early. Like, I would say before leaving high school, which is usually not the case, especially if you're in the special education areas of the school system. But then you've got society believing that whatever you were diagnosed with was real. And I hate to say it in my case that Asperger's isn't real. Because just the aspect of saying that isn't as real as what is implied with the saying of the word. I've dealt with this for 2 years now. Sorry, my leg hurts. It was unfathomable to break out of. And of course, the weirdest part being a motorcycle accident that snapped me out of my funk. But it was more than just the accident. It was me being social for the first time in my life in 2020 and explaining how insecure, recluse, or just isolated I was. I didn't have a first kiss until 2020. Now, knowing how psychopathic and egotistical people can become, they would poke at that. Like, I openly say that because I don't give a shit. But I know how people would poke at that, being like, you haven't kissed in 27 years. Gotta tell you, not kissing for that long, once I did, it was fucking worth it, because then I saw how easy it is to be corrupted when you get something easily. When you don't get it easily, you value it more. Hence why I just coined, I just remembered something. I coined this while helping out my grandmother. That what comes easy in life creates a subsequent blindness in that area. I don't remember if I said that area or in another area or a domain of life. Perhaps that area. So like if someone's attractive and they're very social, they get a constant influx of people that like are attracted to them. But you've got attraction on the surface level, and then you got the reason for attraction, which is, well, the human nature of it. We get attracted to each other, we have sex, we have children. Problem is, we're throwing a bunch of kids into this kind of domain of life. Sexual freedoms. There is no such thing as free sex. I forgot what video that was that said that, but there is no such thing. There's consequences with every action, and when there's emotions involved with it, I've learned that emotions are nothing more than a sign of blindness. If there is some area in life where there's emotions that are hyper inflated, if that makes any sense, that's a sign there's blindness there. If you can't predict what's going to happen if you do something, where if you're hooked on the hope of maybe they're the right one, then I don't think they will be. And chances are something will happen later on where they split up. You see this and it repeats itself. Hence why, like, if I'm around people that have been social their entire life, they'll complain about the same thing over and over. They'll get into a relationship, get out. I can't find a good guy. Get into a relationship, get out of it. I can't find a good guy. And it's like you're living the same fucking loop over and over. I lived the same loop once, which was being socially twice. But this time, prior to 2020, my social isolation sucked. It was living hell. Little did I know there was a different side of hell. The social hell, when you snap out of it and people judge you because all of a sudden you're confident. They get used to who you are when you are holding yourself down by mental chains, because as a side effect of being so... I keep forgetting how I'm explaining this, but a side effect of being so involved into your own mind, when that tension that you built for so long is just like released, it has some behavioral side effects. And I've seen a lot of people going through some psychological changes. It's more like the mind catches up to what it missed for so long, and that's exactly what happened to me. In my area of, not expertise, but my area of my experience, it meant catching up on everything I had missed. While also realizing how, when I was diagnosed, the start of the shell that was created, the mental shell, where was it going? The mental shell. Come on, I'm in such a good role right now. Don't screw it up, Tyler. I'm going to sidetrack and see if I can't recollect it. But the shell, son of a bitch. Sorry, I like where this video is going. Please stand by. My brain is farting right now. When that tension is released, your behavior suddenly changes. And it was like after my accident, when I was beforehand carrying way too much about what people thought of me, had the accident, realized I was caring about stupid shit. Remedial shit. I stopped caring. I realized, holy shit, I'm finally free. Then it was weird how after I broke out of my mental chains, people judged me for the same judgments I had about myself. I was just like, this makes no sense. It was a Twilight Zone effect. Judging me for all these superficial things, and the power of judgment is quite intense when you have an entire town set against you. Not a fun experience. I've been through hell in my life. And it was going through that hell because I had to catch up on what I was missing. Not having the experience of social play when I was in the education system, because let's just say this, put yourself in my shoes. Put yourselves in the shoes of other people that have dealt with this very thing. You're in middle school. That's about the age it happens. You go through puberty. But I'm going to place you in special education, somewhere other than where normal classrooms are. What does that do to your sense of self? Identity? Emotions? It's not a pretty thing. It's not a pretty thing. It's psychological manipulation that is totally unconscious to the people that believe that they're helping when in fact they're making it worse. And that's kind of my whole argument against this whole diagnostic regime, as I call it. Because it's only making people worse off than better. But what I've also learned is when they are isolated, if they can get out of their mental loop of being self-involved or too self-involved, they can realize that they didn't save themselves, but they were saved from a lot of other blind mistakes they could have made. There's blind mistakes that can be made socially, but there's also blind mistakes that can be made when you're not social, because then you're very emotionally influenced, such as the one thing that people diagnosed with Asperger's or ASD as it's now called are prone to explosive emotions, outbursts, or meltdowns. And when feeling like you're constrained, that becomes a case. I'll recollect one little moment when I had that. It was when I was working at the airport in 2016. And because when I worked there, they had this lovely overtime policy, 16 hours overtime. And after that, it was because my passion, because I didn't have a soul in social lives, I took an aim at something else. All my passion in life was just looking at planes. But when the realities of the environment showed that it was nothing short of hell, and I had nothing else to supplement it, I put all my mental energy into aerospace, aviation, anything. If I was around planes, I was a happy freaking person. If I wasn't, I sucked, I suffered. And when I realized how bad that environment was, I remember one time I was on the ramp and I just flipped. I threw the flag down, the flag that we used, whatever. I'm just screaming because I just realized, like, what is going to become of me if I leave the airport? Something like, it felt like it was an axiom, something I couldn't do without. And it was kind of stupid how after I lost that axiom, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. I went to factory works and I hated life even more. Factory jobs, sorry. But how did, like, the fact that I stayed alive long enough to figure out what the fuck was in my way, I'm happy about. And it first started with the birth of my sister. I came back home. Last thing a 25-year-old wants to do is leave his desired independence, living in the cities in an apartment, great, soulless experience there, to go back and live with his mother. Not something that he wants to do. Especially for the sake of a socially judgmental society that says, oh, you're a loser, you live with your mother. Oh, America, you're such a fucking nightmare. Alright. But then 2020 happened, and then it was weird because I was at the end of my ropes. Hope was gone. Aviation was just dwindling like a light that was fainting. Or fainting, or... can't think of the word. And then suddenly I got social. It was once I lost that hope I was able to be social, which, funnily enough, or coincidental enough, I think of it now like my loss of hope, I would say nihilism, my deep-rooted nihilism in my mind, is what granted me access to the social environment. Because it was something we shared, but we didn't speak. And this is why I say we're more united nowadays through pain than we are through anything else. Especially at America's bottom, which is not a pretty place to be. And anyone that's... I don't know. I don't even want to say what I was about to. But beside the point, can I speak proper English? Oh, how much time? Okay, 12 minutes. That ain't bad. I think I said everything I wanted to say. I'll see if I can think of more things. I don't want to be done with this video yet. I'll do it until 15 minutes. My one and only crutch. Second crutch. When I was socially judged, it was kind of a curse that after my accident, I saw how good life could be. I saw it with my own eyes for the first time ever, being free of my own mental judgments, my chains, my inner voice, my inner dialogue, all gone because I was so encapsulated in my own mind that I cultivated this toxic inner critic. And after my motorcycle accident, that inner critic was gone. And I'll tell you one thing, when you have that critic and it becomes just so common, you think it's always going to be there, and it tries to hypothesize romantic ways of how you're going to find your true sense of self or fix your problems or whatever. Not to mention the idea of Asperger's made me believe that I had something when in fact I didn't. God, 2020 was a weird fucking year for me. And it's funny that I did the exact opposite to what everyone else did. I became social. From riding around in motorcycles, having bonfires, just getting a sense of community. And finally once, for the first time in my life, was I able to see myself into another person. And that's where my life got psychologically fucked. I can't put that into better words. Anima projection is what they call it. It's when you project out the sexual tension in your mind onto a person. When it hasn't finished, it'll be a fantasy or an infatuation. You'll just hyperfixate on the person. You'll romanticize ideas, things like this. Or it could be on the adverse, not being romantic. It could just be sexually explicit, like just, what's that word? Deviant. It can manifest in those two different genres, shall we say. But in her case, unfortunately, not that I meant this to happen, it all got funneled into her, and I just finally understood what came in between me, and it was all bullshit. Until I realized I was tripping on social wires, because unlike myself, they had always been social. Kind of the problem with small towns is they're like high schools. They all have known each other. They're united by similarity and familiarity. I never had that. And when I snapped and finally lost my psychological mask, meaning, I wouldn't say psychological mask is intended. It's misunderstood, and it's more so you haven't reached the full extent of your character. And once you have, that mask comes off, and you start experiencing things you hadn't yet but need to experience, and it's a floodgate. It's a floodgate of experience, and that's exactly what meeting her did. And of course, listening to this, one might think like, well, you did something that must have deserved judgment. The worst I ever did. I said to myself that I want to destroy this in the most creative, most honest way possible. And the way that projection works is it is a fantasy, hooked onto a feeling, hooked onto more things than I could have ever imagined. And I said to myself, I just want to save something that I believe to be true, as insane as it was, and it was. I wanted to walk into this building and say, or just scream out loud, would you marry me? I didn't scream it out, but one chick looked at me and she's like, why do you look so upset? And I said it. And let's just say women are pretty gossipy nowadays, because that didn't go down well. I can't, after she spread that, and then 3 days later she deleted me on Facebook, I'm just like, it worked. Little did I know there was more behind the lines. Yeah, that was not so fun. But, God, psychology sucks. If I could design the human mind, I'd make it a little less adaptable to the environment, but if it wasn't like that, stupid idea. It is like that, and the internet is going to undo it. And it's slowly undoing it. It depends on how encapsulated people are in their little bubbles, and if they're willing to let them burst. A rich person wanting to see what it's like being poor, I don't think that's going to happen. A poor person wanting to be rich, that's a thing. They just don't understand what it means. So it's all just perspective and desire for an experience. I think a lot of people in the upper echelons of society have a lot of power to be able to help a lot of people out, and they just don't know how. The bottom is suffering, and I think there's a lot of apathy being bred nowadays. A lot of apathy. And it's rotting us. Our sense of disconnection, all the details in between. Okay, that's a big-ass tangent there, but the biggest thing I wanted to do is just make another video. Never subscribe yourself to an idea that you have something that just like totally explains what you're going through, like an idea that Asperger's is a psychological ailment, or like it's described like it's a broken arm. It's you can't see Asperger's. It's a behavioral manifestation, and there's reasons it manifests. And it's funny that autism itself, that word, Latin translates to self, meaning self-absorbed, or reclused, or isolated. So if there's a child that's isolated, there's something going wrong where he is being either insecure, his family life is chaotic, or some other thing. He's being recluded. So what does society do? Label him with Asperger's and then treat him even worse. It's guised as compassion. Oh, he's okay. He's just lesser abled. Holy fucking shit. Do you not see the feedback loop here? I can't believe it took me 27 years to break out of that shell. It pisses me off. But, cool. I'm ending this one at 20. Better than 23 or 25 or whatever the hell. But, probably the most honest video I've done, because the other ones I was fumbling about these details for the last 2 years and trying to get it out. Pain in the ass. And the first video I uploaded on this channel, I remember that. Well, it wasn't fun. A lot of that video was trying to hide just how emotionally destroyed I was. I might be smiling in that video, but inside, I had a heart that just went go kaboom. Like, it felt like complete shit. April. Yeah, so I was 4 months after being betrayed and totally socially dispossessed out of my hometown. And it took me a solid year to get out of that loop. Disassociation from reality is not a fun state to be in. I am so glad that I never sought help for any of this, because I realized all they would have done was just put me on pills or something. Just something ugly and disgusting. But aside that, I hope this video actually gets some, not attention that I'm seeking, but attention to people that need to understand something or to see something, or maybe enlighten me on something I said that might ring a bell. I don't know. I'm at a loss again. I write like non-stop trying to just puzzle this together to make it simpler. Curse to me now is that I've always loved complexity, and the worst thing to understand is the human brain. That's the most complex, but also the simplest thing. And now we're just drowning in details. So without further ado, I'm going to end this. So have a good day, everybody. I hope this was a good video for you.